in that book, you tell the journey of, oh my God, I just said journey. Kill me. Hate when I say that word.
I've literally said that myself. Oh my God, I just said vision board. Kill me. I've had these conversations with people, so I hear you.
I'm going to have to go. You know what I'm going to have to do? Because I keep saying this word. I'm going to need to pull up thesaurus.com someday and write down alternate words. But anyway, for now, your journey of panic attacks. And your first panic attack was right after college. And what I love about your description of it is a lot of people will go to the hospital with what they think is a heart attack, and it turns out to be a panic attack. You had a very similar experience to me, and so I'm sure a million other people, and I hope a million people are listening, which is, it's not that you thought you were having a heart attack. You thought it was, as you called it, the precursor to death.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you had your derealization, depersonalization feelings, which listeners I talked about on a previous episode with Josh Fletcher. And those feelings, I imagine, I haven't died yet, are maybe what it feels like to go through the tunnel and you feel like any minute you're going to see the light and you're going to be on the other side or whatever there is, or you're going to be dead. And you just kind of sat there having the panic attack, which you didn't know, which you thought was the precursor to death, going, I'm dying. I'm not even going to wake up my mom because why should she watch it? Can you describe it in your own words?
I can totally do that. And I'm sure most people could understand this. And it's funny because in that book, that's the part that gets most feedback. Like, oh my God, you described my experience perfectly. But we all share such a common experience. I was actually still in school as my sophomore year at UB. I was home on spring break and like in the house I grew up in, and everything was going great. I got like a 4.0 grade point average. Like, who slides into panic disorder and has a 4.0? Like this guy, right? It was stupid. It made no sense. But everything was going really well. And I remember I was just hanging out and I was reading a book. I was in bed and listening to music. And all of a sudden I was like that weird, it's funny in retrospect, we can talk about this if you want. I did experience derealization and depersonalization when I was little. I just didn't know what it was. And that only hit me a couple of years ago that I realized, when everybody felt like they were so far away, that's what that was. But anyway, so I was hit with derealization and everything felt weird, but depersonalization. I felt like it was outside myself. And I mean, you guys can understand if you're listening, you know what that feels like. It was terrifying. I had never experienced that before. And then I immediately became deathly afraid of the sensations I was having, and my heart was pounding and I started sweating and I felt I couldn't breathe. And you all know what a panic attack feels like. But I didn't know it was a panic attack. And I thought that derealization and that depersonalization feeling, I truly interpreted it as, well, it's been a good run. 19 years. I did okay. I guess I'm out. Like, I'm joking about it, but I truly, in that moment, that's how I interpreted it. This is what it feels like when you die.
Yeah. Oh, I totally relate. I was in high school having that feeling in my French class.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, I was kind of death obsessed, kind of an anxious, neurotic person. And, the music I was listening to certainly didn't help me not think about death all the time. I listened to the Smiths a lot.
Oh, you were done.
And I'm like, I was very dramatic and like writing in my diary all the time about, I'd love to sit in the cemetery and think these people had lives and everyone just drives by it. And so when I was having my little panic attack, well, it wasn't little, in my French class, I remember thinking, oh, this is why I'm so obsessed with death. I knew somewhere that I was going to die young. And it's happening right now. And it's interesting, though, that you didn't go wake up your mom. You just thought you might just lay there and, I don't know.
Well, if I think about that, like the thought process was so strange. Like in each moment, I'm like, well, this is it. There's no point because this is it. This is where I'm going right now. And then it was, well, I didn't, but this is the moment now. And then this is the moment now. And clearly that moment never came because that was many years ago. But that was my interpretation. It wasn't, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack, or oh my God, I'm having a stroke, or oh my God, I'm having some sort of embolism. It was literally just, I guess this is what it feels like when you die. But it was terrifying. In retrospect, I could talk about it and joke and make it turn it a little bit humorous. Yeah. It's humorous because of the absurdity of it in the end, which is the nature of panic as it is. But I was there. This is it. And I remember in the book, I even write the story. I know you went through it, but like I got myself, I went and splashed water on my face. I did all the usual panic attack things that everybody tries to do. I didn't know why I was doing them, but I did them. Laid against the cold tile in my bathroom to feel the cold tile, tried that. And then I kind of limped into the living room and sat on the shitty powder blue Barca lounger. And like, then my mom did come out. She heard me up. She was like, how you doing? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, what? I've made some really crazy decisions in my life. That was one of the top 3. Why would I say, yo, sure, yeah, I'm good.
Do you think that there's something deep down that you did know you were okay?
I do. There's something about that, I mean, I don't know. We're never going to truly know that answer, I'm sure, but I had to know because at each moment that passes that you don't die. And look, this is the crux of the lesson of recovery anyway. That takes a long time to learn. But in each moment that like, well, I still didn't die and I still didn't die and I still didn't die. And I did reach a point, maybe an hour or so into that as it's rising and falling because, adrenaline will do that I realized like, oh, well, maybe I'm not dying. Maybe I don't know what this is. And this is terrifying still, but maybe I'm actually not dying right now. I remember having that realization. And it wasn't too long after she came out and asked, you okay? And then she went back to bed. Like, worst night of my life when you just went back to bed. Thanks, Mom. Like, it was, she didn't know. I didn't say anything.
She didn't know.
But I don't know. Maybe some part of me did understand. But I was coming to the realization, well, I'm still not dead. I'm still not dead. I'm still not dead. So I knew I was wrong. I could tell that I was wrong. Still didn't know what it was, though.
And so I want to drill down into this just because I've gotten emails from people that are like, you always say on your show, and these experts say panic attacks last 10 minutes, but mine last an hour. And I know what they're saying because I've certainly had all day panic attacks. It wasn't just anxiety. But literally, like, you cannot from start to finish panic for 1 hour straight. Like you said, it's up and down. It comes and goes, right? So for anyone listening that, wants to say, I have them for an hour though, so mine are bad. It's like, well, just, look at that because it's probably not literally no relief for an hour because that's just not possible, right?
It's not physiologically possible. It doesn't work that way. And one of the insidious things about panic and anxiety and the irrational fear that comes with it, and by the way, the fear is always real. That's not fake fear. Don't let anybody tell you that it's in your head. The fear is 100% real. There's no doubt about that. But it's irrational because there's no underlying danger beneath it. We just think there is. The one of the insidious things about that situation is it will insist that this is the worst panic attack I've ever had. How many people have you talked to? Many. And you may have been one of them. And for a while, I was one of them. Every panic attack was the worst one ever. This was the worst one. This was the worst one. But in reality, if you had a bunch of doctors around you and they hooked you up to all kinds of monitoring devices, the physiology would look the same in every single one. The interpretation changes. But yes, it's an undulating wave. There's that spike and it comes down and the spike. You just never come down to zero. So therefore, you will say, my panic lasts for 3 days straight. Oh, because you think it ends when you have zero anxiety. That's not how it works.
We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Elliot Kalin, comedian, author, history buff, and host of the Who Was podcast, a history quiz show based on the best-selling book series where kid contestants go toe-to-toe for a chance to win fantastic prizes. My co-host B,
that's me,
and I ask the tough questions like,
would Mozart like TikTok?
But that's not all we talk about on the show.
Usually my signature look is bedhead.
All right, I like it.
I do gymnastics and I have 2 scars.
Are the scars from gymnastics or were you like wrestling dinosaurs and things like that?
I really like history. Even my mom says I know more than most adults do.
We've got fun games, silly songs.
And don't forget to mention our amazing guests.
It's me, Frida Kahlo. Bonjour, c'est moi, Marie Curie.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Aretha Franklin.
Listen to the Who Was podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's the Who Was podcast, because it's time to play the Who Was podcast. Who was?
Are you dealing with best life burnout, constantly striving for more, and quite frankly, over it? Maybe you just want more joy, peace, and laughter in your life now. Well, then let's go. Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Hot Happy Mess, hosted by me, your girl, Zuri Hall. Join us each week as we discuss dating, relationships, self-care, career wins and losses, and so much more. Oh, and moments like this. You know what? Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake.
Well, that's why I mentioned muting. There are some people who will check you.
We got some petty people in our lives. I was crying by the water because I was happy.
And I do love a clear.
Wine will be spilled, laughs will be had, and a few tears might be shed. Messes will be made, but we're going to find our magic in the middle of them. Don't miss new episodes every Wednesday. Find Hot Happy Mess on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From tips for healthy living to the latest medical breakthroughs, WebMD's Health Discovered podcast keeps you up to date on today's most important health issues. Through in-depth conversations with experts from across the healthcare community, WebMD reveals how today's health news will impact your life tomorrow.
It's not that people don't know that exercise is healthy. It's just that people don't know why it's healthy. And we're struggling to try to help people help themselves and each other.
Listen to WebMD Health Discovered on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
So when you're sitting there going, well, I guess I'm dying, in the most fucked up way, that is a form of acceptance, but it's not real acceptance, right? So you talk later about, you read this book by Claire Weeks. Is it called Pass Through Panic?
That's one version of it. It actually has multiple titles depending on where in the world you live. I had it as Hope and Help for Your Nerves.
Oh, okay. It shows, so she's an Australian author.
Yeah, she was a physician that worked in the 1950s, and she was a kind of a pioneer in describing these problems to lay people.
So you go through her books and you learn some techniques, and one of them is acceptance. And so take us through what true acceptance looks like, because when I've used this word with people before, it seems like you're saying, well, accept it. It's never going to change, and I don't want to accept it, right?
I mean, I do use the word acceptance, and she also wrote a lot about floating. You have to float through panic and float and accept and float and accept. And I don't like those words. I think if Dr. Weeks had the benefit of the internet in her day, she would stop using those words because they create tremendous amounts of confusion. Acceptance does not mean liking it, nor does it mean wanting it. I use the word surrender. And what I actually learned to do after reading Dr. Weeks is, and technically, I surrendered. And I surrendered.
You did surrender. That's right. Yeah.
I surrendered. And that's the word that I like to use. But in the end, it's a practice of literally giving up the fight, not giving up your quest to recover. It doesn't mean giving up. But in the moment, it means I'm clearly not successful in fighting this thing when it happens, trying to stop it, manage it, knock it down, manage the symptoms. So I'm just going to let it come and get me because it keeps failing to take me down. As much as it threatens to, it never does. So I'm just going to let it happen. And the first time I ever did that, and that was after reading Hope and Help for Your Nerves, was sitting in the driveway and in the passenger seat of the car. I wrote that in the book. And I felt it coming. You know what it feels like when that panic is rising and you know it's going to happen. Like, okay, this is happening now. And I remember thinking, I asked my mother was in the car with me and I asked her to get out of the car. I'm like, hey, go in the house. I just got to sit here. She was like, really? And I'm like, yep. And I was like, here we go. And I literally just slunk back into the chair and I had to make a moment. And there was a lot of bravery in that moment. I don't take it. That's important. That's part of it. That said, okay, you have to come and get me now. You have to come and kill me now. And that's a hard statement to make. But in the end, it never does. It never does. It never kills you. It never makes you crazy. It doesn't make you pass out. It does, unless you have the exaggerated vasovagal response, which we can talk about that. But most people don't have that. You'd know if you do. But it doesn't do all those horrible things. So I just let my body slump back into the seat of this 1984 Ford Escort. It was a real sweet ride. And I let it come and get me. And I was astounded. It was terrifying, 100% terrifying, because that is not what we are designed to do. We are designed to hang on like hot death to not let bad things happen to us. And I had to do exactly the opposite because Dr. Weeks said so in the book. And when I felt it peak, you know that moment when you start to feel better and suddenly you're a superhero, like you know it's going away?
The adrenaline kicks in and you're like, I can do anything.
You're like the god of thunder at that moment.
Yeah.
That came so fast. And when I say so fast, I would say 8 to 10 minutes, maybe.
Ooh.
Maybe. And I remember, because I remember looking at the clock on the dashboard and like, now 10 minutes of panic is a lot.
Yeah.
But you know how it is. You would go through hours of it up and down and up and down and up and down. And this was like, holy shit, like it worked. I got out of that car and I was like moonwalking down the driveway. I was shaking, I was sweating, I was still not good, but I was so freaking happy. That was an amazing experience. I'll never forget it.
And I think it's just dawning on me that 10 minutes of panic that you let completely take you over, then that makes it completely go away. So you have that adrenaline superhero feeling, and then it's really over, like the end of a horror movie when everything's just quiet, and I don't mean one with a sequel where the monster comes back, but the real end. But if you try to stop it sometimes, you'll get down to an okay enough level so that it's the end of a horror movie, but there's going to be a sequel, the monster comes back. And so that is really important, that not only does sitting there bravely, just letting it take over you, surrendering to it, not only will that help for future panic attacks, but in that moment, it's really going to pretty much kill that one. So you're not having this 2-hour up and down thing.
Except I always say, to me, the intent is the magic in the recovery process. Because if you look at this as this is the way you stop a panic attack, you're kind of fucked. And I think it's safe to say that because we do not appear to be a friendly podcast.
We do not.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. And I think, honestly, I believe that in my heart because there will be times when you're not so good at that. So as much as I practiced it over many, many years, there were times in the process when I failed at that and I got carried away and I started fighting it again and then it wouldn't go away. So the intent that matters so much is I must surrender to this to learn a lesson that will serve me the next time. It is super critical. And so many people do not want to hear that. They just want to know, what do I do? What part of my body do I tap? What do I sniff? What do I rub on my wrists?
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
No, Drew does not have any essential oils to sell us. But I do think, I love the way you're framing it, which is it's a lesson. It's, I think these can be really motivating things for certain types who want to look at it that way. This is your, I don't know, this is your, I'm trying not to say the word journey, but this is what you have to go through to come out the other side. And if you want to look at it as I'm going through my vision quest here, but I think the thing is, so if the panic ever comes back in your life, if you slay it for a while and it comes back, I do think the natural response is to go back to fighting it because it just is, it's our normal instinct. And it's very hard to learn. I know it sounds crazy, but in this moment, you got to go against your normal instinct to stay alive, but it will help you feel like you're going to stay alive. Your panic is no different than anyone else. No one's ever died of a panic attack. And, my thing used to be, well, I'll be the first one. Someone had to be the first one to die of anything, right? Why not me?
I get that. I understand that.
Yeah. And so, okay, so now you're in your book, you just like 10 years goes by and you're fine. You're like, I did it. And then it comes back again. And you forget that you even had this Claire Weeks book. You forget all the stuff you did. And now it comes back and it gets worse. Now you're at the point where you're hitting monophobia and agoraphobia. Can you tell us what those things are? I actually had not even been that familiar with monophobia and then realized, oh, well, I've actually experienced it a lot.
Yeah. So you're right. 10 years later, now I had that episode and it was in a few months, I had pretty much what I felt was like, oh, I'm good. I'm good to go. And I went along with my life and didn't think about it much anymore. And then it came back and I still owned the book. I still had the book. I cannot explain why I did not return to that thing. I know why. In retrospect, I know why. Because I didn't have to work hard enough. I didn't learn anything. I just did stuff and it went away. And okay, that was great for 10 years, but I didn't actually learn. So when it came back, I didn't have a skill set. I didn't have enough knowledge. I didn't really understand what I did. I just did stuff. So anyway, I failed to do it. And yes, it did progress because I would fight it and I would avoid. So when I would panic on the highway, I would stop driving on the highway. And when I would panic in the supermarket, I stopped going to the supermarket. And when I panicked in my office, I didn't want to go I own the company and I couldn't go to the office. That's pretty embarrassing. Oof. That sucks. Yeah.
It's better though than having to explain it to the boss in a weird way.
As crazy as it sounds, look, if you're going to wind up agoraphobic, be the boss because yes, we can joke about that, but that's true. But yeah, I disappeared from my own business. And I was stuck in my house and I was terrified to be alone. And that's monophobia. Now, monophobia is a word that a lot of us throw around. I have to be honest with you. I do not know if you would find monophobia in the DSM. Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. But it's a very, very common part of the anxiety and agoraphobia complex. Monophobia is where you are terrified to be alone. And this has nothing to do with having anxious attachment or anything like that.
Yeah, this isn't like your mother abandoned you. This is literally just like you might not even want to hang out with people emotionally. You're just so afraid that if someone's not there monitoring you, you will die.
I am still deathly afraid of my own body and my mother's sensations, and I'm afraid of my thoughts. And somebody must be here to save me. And save me might be literally get me to a hospital or perform CPR on me, or might be, well, they have to calm me down. And if there's nobody around to save you, then you're just left with you and the monster, air quotes. And that's how monophobia develops. I posted not too long on social media. This is a true story. And it's funny now, but at the time it wasn't funny. I had a Rhodesian Ridgeback dog at the time. She was great. Lexi was an awesome dog. And I remember literally spending a tremendous amount of mental energy trying to convince myself that if need be, the dog could somehow dial the phone. No, that is a true story.
Listen, I've seen YouTube videos where they do that.
Yeah. And in all honesty, like that irrational fear becomes so self-serving and so all-consuming and so powerful in the way it twists things in your head that I would put the cordless, was a big old cordless phone in the late 90s. It wasn't pretty. And I would put it on the floor next to the dog. And Lexi would lay next to me all the time because she would stick with me when I wasn't feeling good. She was great.
Oh.
And somehow in my mind, I found some solace in the idea that, well, maybe she could actually like hit a button if I'm able to at least hit the button. And, I literally went through that. I was terrified to be alone.
But I mean, it's in a weird way you were soothing yourself, right? It gave you some comfort, even though it was made up.
I was trying because I knew that there's no chance she was an awesome dog, but she doesn't know how to dial phone, dude. Like I knew this in my heart, but yet somehow I was grasping at anything that might make me feel better. But I did. I became agoraphobic, and that happened to me kind of twice in my life after that. And agoraphobia, I did a podcast episode on agoraphobia. This is pretty simple. And the $1 million question is, why does somebody have a panic attack or multiple panic attacks in their life and never develop panic disorder or agoraphobia? Because the progression to agoraphobia, which is not, by the way, a fear of leaving your house. It's a fear of how you will feel in certain contexts and situations. Panic attack.
It's more like that fear of having a panic attack outside the home. It's the fear of your panic
symptoms and the thoughts. And wherever they happen, then I can't go there. Okay, so panic attack leads to panic attacks, which leads to panic disorder, which leads to avoid. Got to avoid my triggers. Got to know my triggers and avoid them. We hear all the time, bad advice. Avoid means you run out of places to be, air quotes, safe. And most of the time you wind up that you're home. For some people, one piece of furniture in their home is the only safe place. That's terrible and heartbreaking. But I work with people all the time that are literally stuck on their sofa.
Yeah.
Or in the bed. That's agoraphobia.
Yeah, because what happens if you're agoraphobic, is there something in your brain that, I don't know, like somehow prevents you from panicking at home? Like, is there a built-in protection, or can people start to develop, oh my God, now it's coming from inside the house. Now I'm panicking in my safe place.
That's always terrible because most of the time, the common thing is somebody who is, I'm safe at home. A modified agoraphobia is I'm okay as long as I can leave the house as long as I have my partner with me or my mom or my sister or my best friend. Those are my safe people.
Okay.
I can go out with them and it's okay. But it's really just the ultimate expression of avoidance as an anxiety strategy run amok. It's avoidance left unchecked. So every place that you experience panic, you leave that place, the panic goes away, which was going to anyway. No matter what happens, it was always going to go away. And then you associate, well, I can't go there because it will trigger that if I go again. And for some people, that even becomes, I can't go to the kitchen. I can't go into the bathroom. I can't go into the living room. I can't stand by the front door. It's terrible. It's literally like this learning mechanism run amok, gone off the rails.
And do most people come out of this? I mean, is it?
Yeah, I did. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's not a hopeless situation. The thing that sucks about that is, how did I get out of it? Well, I started doing the things that we don't, I'm going to let you lead the way here, but we talk about what you want to talk. But in a way, that was it. I had to understand that, like, well, clearly, intellectually, when you ask, does my brain somehow think that I'm safer in my house? You know that logically. Like, I'm the same person in my living room that I am in Midtown, or I am in North Jersey, or I am in California, or in China. You know this already, but yet that fear center in your brain, your amygdala, has decided, no, none of those places are safe. Only this is safe. So the only way to go through it is to say, well, I'm intentionally going to go and start doing those things that I think will make me panic. And if I do panic, I'm going to have to use that surrender method and keep learning again and again and again that it keeps failing to live up to its threat. It keeps failing to take me down. It keeps failing to kill me. It keeps failing to make me crazy. And so, it's those learning those lessons. So you take the same exact mechanism that teaches you to be afraid of your own body and you throw it in reverse and use it to learn not to be afraid of your body anymore, not to stop the anxiety, not be afraid of it. That's the first goal.
Here's another one of my metaphors. It reminds me of an internet troll. I don't know if you've seen circumstances where somebody is being bullied by an internet troll, some anonymous something, and they're going back and forth and everyone's anxiety is out of control. And it's until someone says, you know what, I'm going to call you. Let me call you. Let's talk about this. I've seen a few things on the internet where people have done this. And the person, once you call them, is like completely backing down. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. And it's sort of like panic. It's like, if I fight my panic, I'm fighting with internet trolls. Everyone's getting more anxious.
Yeah.
And if I just say, you know what, what's your number? I'm going to call you and say it to my face, like, what is your deal?
And the bad news is like you're fighting the troll on their terms. So when you keep trying to find strategies, I need to find strategies. I need to find my triggers to avoid them and what short circuits it. And again, I'm not picking on things. It's I'm going to tell you my perspective. I know I'm not for everybody. But when you try to fight it that way or manage it or stop it or halt it, you're fighting it on its terms and it wins every time. If you're listening to Jen right now and you've been trying to manage anxiety and panic attacks for years and kind of failing, well, you have to sometimes consider that maybe I should stop fighting it. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true.
Yeah. And I love how you say it's on its terms.
And you'll lose that every time. We just don't have the ability to fight that war. I have experienced that. And just funny 10-second story. On Instagram, I do a lot of work with Josh and those folks on Instagram, and we do have a troll that the entire anxiety community has one person that's angry at us. And I have, in the middle of an Instagram live, said, hey, come on camera. Come on with me. Come on. And then they're gone.
Yeah, they're probably angry with you guys because you're shining a light on stuff they need to do.
Who knows why? But yes, you do have to say, like, all right, come on, let's talk about this. Come on in and show me what you got. And as it turns out, it's got a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it isn't. Anxiety is a powerful thing, and that physiological response is a powerful thing, and it is very scary. But in the end, the threat that you have perceived it as is not real. It's not going to take you down.
We'll continue the interview on the flip side of a quick message from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Eva Longoria, and I am so excited to share my new podcast with you. It's called Connections with me, Eva Longoria. Now, you may know me as an actress, producer, director, humanitarian, and now I'm adding podcaster to the list. Over the last couple of years, I feel like we've lost so many connections, and everyone's talking about going back to normal. Well, I don't want to go back to normal. I want to connect better. I'm talking to the smartest people I know, friends and experts in all different categories, to talk about our most important connections and how to make them stronger. How should we connect with our partners, our kids, money, politics, food, jobs, news, spirituality, sex? How can we connect better with ourselves? Listen to Connections with Eva Longoria as part of the My Cultura podcast network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Katie Lowe's. You might also know me as Quinn Perkins from Scandal or Rachel from Inventing Anna. I'm also a mother to my son Albie and my daughter Vera. I wanted to create a space for open and honest conversations about all things parenting. And I thought a podcast was the best way to do just that. Check out season 5 of my podcast, Katie's Crib. It is super raw, vulnerable, and hilarious. Katie's Crib in no way, shape, form is judgmental or telling you exactly how to parent or exactly how you should be. I think it really just makes you feel less alone and gives you a community. We're going deep with guests like Inventing Anna's Anna Klumsky, How to Get Away with Murders, Asia Naomi King. And yes, sometimes my son Albie when he bursts into my studio, so that's cool. Listen to Katie's Crib every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Introducing #Matter, a brand new 8-episode scripted podcast.
911 emergency response. Yeah, I need an ambulance. We at Jason's 42 Sports Bar and Grill.
A little over 12 months ago, an 18-year-old African-American young man named Niles Hayes was driving a family friend's luxury vehicle when he was stopped for a routine traffic violation. Things escalate quickly.
Unit 510 Nora, we have a 999 shooting in progress. Officers down.
Within hours of the police